Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by the letters K and the letter O. Only kidding. I've been looking forward to talking to this guy for ages. Cumbrian glove and protective equipment legends Knox. Aaron from Knox is actually joining us today to talk about all things Knox and protective equipment and gloves. The letter K for Knox, the letter O for Knox Orsat, which are my favourite trail and adventure gloves. And I urge all of you to save up and buy some. You won't regret it. Aaron talks us through some of the history of Knox, how his father Jeff started the business. He talks about his products. They're absolutely brilliant. YouTube channel. And I ended up having to tell Noel why he was an idiot because he doesn't wear proper gloves all the time. But we'll get onto that. Right, let's get on with it. So I'm delighted to be joined by Aaron Travell from Knox Armour. Planet Knox, what do you call yourselves?
Knox is the brand. Our social media channels are Knox Armour. The company is Planet Knox, so maybe it's a tad confusing, but the brand is Knox, yes, so from Knox.
And you are planet-knox.com, right?
The story with that is that going back, I think it was 25 years ago when we changed to Knox. Previous to that, it was ProTech. But of course, you've got things like For Knox and different things like that. So we had to, Knox.com wasn't available at that time. We thought, oh, well, Planet Knox, because it's sort of a housing for the name.
The company was started before the age of the internet, I'm guessing, with your dad, Jeff, wasn't it? That's quite a nice story behind how he actually started the company, isn't there?
Jeff, me dad, was a motorcycle racer, like dead keen into it in the late 70s, early 80s. Pretty good, to be fair. You'd say sort of up there in the national classes. I had an international license at one point as well. So, you know, he was a quick guy, won a lot of club racing. Of course, totally different scene to what it is now. Big monster trucks, £1 million sort of budgets and all that kind of stuff. You could sort of turn up with your transit van and a decent bike and sort of have a good go. And that's where my dad was. He was also an upholsterer by trade, so fixing sofas and making sofas, and it was a proper sort of trade back then. Obviously, they're still around now, but we tend to just like chuck things out and buy new now, don't we?
We don't in my house because my wife is also an upholsterer.
So he was an upholsterer by trade, motorcycle racer, and effectively he was quick, but he was a fair crasher as well. Was my dad. Still is now. He had a number of big crashes, and there wasn't basically any armour back then at all. It was sort of just leather suits with like nothing in them. And this was even before the knee sliders and things like that. You know, they just put duct tape on the leathers and I guess graze your knee against the floor, and it was just leather suits. So when you did fall off, man, you know, it was a big deal. So he smashed up all his arm and got glass in it and all sorts of stuff. You know, he broke his back really badly. Actually had a trials bike accident when he was 18, not a road racing accident, obviously, but he hurt himself a lot. Connected with the upholstery thing, his idea was, well, actually one of the sets of levers that he bought, it was an old pair that Barry Sheen had, and he bought them from his manager at the time, and they had a bit of a relationship kind of thing. So my dad had bought these levers off Barry Sheen's manager. You know, there was sort of a crack, I suppose, that Barry was putting upholstery foam from his mum's sofa down his back to give him some protection. Obviously, Jeff being in the paddock, he bought the levers. He sort of put two and two together and thought, well, do you know what? Like, sofa foam, well, I've got access to some of that. So essentially what he did is went to the upholstery foam supplier and requested like the hardest grade foam that he could get. And yeah, started making back protect, or made the first ever back protector out of ultimately the hardest grade sort of packaging foam that he could get at the time. Did a real nice job. You know, he molded essentially a mold out of fiberglass off of his own back. Then you could heat it up, put it in the mold, get it to his shape, sew some straps on it, And all of a sudden, we've got the world's first back protector. That's kind of how it started.
Was he just making it for himself, or did he then other people saw him and then somebody else wanted one?
Initially, you've obviously got to get it right in the first part. He would have made it and tried it on and see how it felt and stuff. But no, basically his idea was load his transit van up and take him to the races. And he did exactly that. And he turned up at the British Grand Prix. There's quite a few brands, or there's one in particular that claims that they did the first ever back protector and they invented it and so on and so forth. But basically isn't true, because Jeff, or my dad, turned up at the British Grand Prix with a van full of these Protec back protectors that were drawn on Protec in a sort of silver pen. He was selling them to the racers, guys like Raymond Roche at the time. A lot of like really, really up there racers of the day were literally lining up to buy these products, and some of them were sponsored by these big brands. Big international racers were actually purchasing these from my dad. So that was sort of how it started. He quickly exhausted the racer scene for that product. Obviously, like, there's only so many people that race motorbikes. I guess he had to go elsewhere from there, really.
Have you always been involved with the business?
I think there's a picture of me next to a Protec van, about 6 months old, when my dad was racing. I've been there since being a baby, and I've sort of gone around with the business and been involved in it. I worked in the factory as a kid, pressing out foams and thermoforming, die cutting, working on sewing machines, packing, doing all sorts of different stuff as a kid. From about 18, I worked full-time in the business. So I've been in it now for 21 years.
But I guess you've also been around motorbikes your whole life as well then.
Yeah.
You do a lot of the social media, the YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
That's not work. You're just dicking around on bikes, aren't you, basically? Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
What are your biker pronouns?
Honestly, I love it all. I'm like a serial... Yeah, I'm not committed to any one type of motorbiking. I flipping love it all. And every time I try a new thing with motorbikes, I almost come away with a new appreciation of it. And I think it changes depending on how you're feeling at that time. Like, I ride on track, but I haven't ridden on track this year, which is crazy because I did an absolute ton of it last year and I did a ton of it the year before. But I fell off and hurt myself a few times last year. And I've got this fire-breathing ex-BSB super stock Gixxer 1000 race bike that I'm a little bit scared of as well. When you hurt yourself, it hurts. And when you're on track and you properly hurt yourself, it takes a little while to recover. My last track day was sort of mid-September at Donington last year in the wet, and I'd just come off like an awesome track day the month before at Alton Park, and I'd been on my 750 on that one. It was in the wet as well, and I was on Dunlop tyres, these new Dunlop wet tyres. It was like my first time riding in the wet on track. I just had the most incredible time. I just found that I could do whatever I wanted on these tyres. The grip was just phenomenal. It was like knee down in the wet. I could go pretty much full gas. I mean, it was only like 8 to 10 seconds slower than my dry times, and it was just unreal. Full gas in the wet on these Dunlop wet tyres, incredible. And then I went to Donington the month after on my 1000, and that bike came with Pirellis because it was an ex-BSB bike, and obviously that championship runs Pirellis. I did 2 sighting laps, and then I did the 3rd lap, and the instructor's just gone in. I come round Starkey's Bridge, and only about, it was like 95 mile an hour, and I was just like holding a constant throttle, and all of a sudden the rear stepped out, and I flew up in the air, sort of high side, and really hurt my wrist. Just come a clatter down, just smacked it on the floor. And I've been nursing that for quite some time.
What else have you got in the garage then? I know you do a bit of enduro now, don't you?
Yeah, the enduro is massive for me. I absolutely love the enduro. That's probably the most I'm riding at the moment. So I've got a couple of enduro bikes. I've got an FE 350, which is the 4-stroke 350, Husqvarna. And then I've got a TE 300 Pro, which I've just bought. That's the 2024 2-stroke, which is class. I mean, to be fair, they're both class bikes. I think if I was to do it again and do like the hard enduro stuff that I'm tending to do, I probably would stay on two-stroke going forward, but they're both cracking bikes, they're class. My kids have got bikes, so we've got a little CRF 110, the sort of semi-automatic thing. My other son had the CRF 100, that was his first one, but we've just chopped that in and we're looking for a 125 two-stroke one because he wants to go racing motocross. So
how old is he?
He's 14. Do you know what? He's one of those lads as well that absolutely sends it, and he's going to hurt himself. There's not really a way around it.
As soon as they do that, that's when they kind of, or I shouldn't say we, that's when you kind of get a bit of sense, isn't it, really? You kind of think, actually, this really, really hurts when you break something. Going to be a little bit more circumspect in future.
I think that's probably where I am with like my own riding, like certainly the track stuff. For a couple of years, really like going harder and faster and really having a go. But I think those couple of crashes last year have just sort of given me a newfound respect for what on earth I'm doing and not being quite so gung-ho about it, because when it does go wrong, it's all very well when it's going right, isn't it? But when you come a cropper, like it hurts. I think the first crash I had, I just a stupid little low side at Croft, but the bike like landed on my little finger, on the handlebar, and it sort of dragged it down the road, and I ripped my fingernail off, so that really hurt. But then I got ran over by the following two motorbikes, and they were big burly lads as well, so I like cracked a couple of ribs as well, so that was just another little awkward one.
Sounds worse than awkward.
That's always my fear about being on a track, is being hit by other people.
It's not great.
Did they go right over you?
Yeah, apparently the guy behind me like log hopped me like Jarvis style, we literally went straight over. I mean, how he managed to stay on. And I went to see him afterwards, and it's probably a bit of track etiquette, isn't it? If you fall off and you cause someone else to sort of have a moment, I went to see him afterwards and just said, look, sorry for falling off.
You could argue that he could have come and said sorry to you for riding over you.
I don't know. It's just one of those things you like to do in the community, and try and do things right. But I saw him and he was a big lad. He must have been 18 plus stone. Yeah, I was quite lucky to come away with just a couple of broken ribs, but the fingernail really hurts. That was uber painful, because they took it off in the hospital and said, yeah, sorry, we're gonna have to like clean it all out and then reinsert it. That just really hurt.
Oh. I've had a similar thing with dropping a rock on my finger, and when they started talking about nail beds, the possibility of it not coming back. Having a finger injected is not pleasant, is it?
Can we change the subject anyway? So presumably, Aaron, you do a bit of trail riding round our way. Do you hit the South Lakes very often?
I have done. I haven't done for a little while. There's always the sort of chance to do them on enduro bikes and stuff, and I've done them a few times on adventure bikes that we've borrowed and different bits and pieces. But yeah, there's a bit more of a network in the South Lakes, isn't there? One of the problems that we have in this particular area, but it's definitely all over the country, is that we have like quite a class country, and like we have awesome countryside here and like the mountains and everything. You just think, oh, I just want to ride up it all and like have a good time. But the reality is, I mean, it's pretty flipping limited, isn't it? And they've cut our legs off in terms of the trails, and really, is that all we've got? It's kind of a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, you can still have an amazing day out in the Lake District, but as you say, back when the NERT laws came out a few years ago, some of the lanes we lost there really changed where you could go and how you could link the various lanes together. That one through Grisdale, one of the big mountain passes we lost as well, didn't we? Garburn we lost. That was a sad loss as well.
It's a shame, and I wish it wasn't the case, and like other countries sort of seem to make a better job. When I went to Spain a few years ago and we were trail riding over there, it was just awesome. There's so much trails that you could link together, and you could spend probably days just not really hitting any tarmac. It was class.
People seem to be happy to see you as well, especially when you stop in their town or village and go and spend money in the bar, right?
Definitely. People get so het up about it here. We did a day photo shoot trail riding, and there was one that's at the foot of Skiddaw. Then obviously there's the Coach Road, which you've probably been on as well, but the one at the bottom of Skiddaw, because that's where a lot of the walkers begin their walk up Skiddaw, coming over, are you really allowed to do this? Are you is this and this that, and looking at registration plates?
It's funny actually, we both live in fairly remote areas. around here, and it's like single track roads to get where you're going. Quite often we'll get people walking down our lanes. You know, they've done some footpaths and they're walking down the road to go on another footpath, and they just look at you when you're driving home to your house that they've just walked through your garden, because there's a footpath goes through your garden, and they give you such dirty looks like, what are you doing driving cars around here? This is for my peace and quiet and recreation. And especially my lads get really cross with them. Dad, beat me horn. Move them out. The other day, somebody just carried on walking down the middle of the road with their fucking dog and just refused to even step to the side of the road so I could get past them. They're the kind of pricks we're dealing with.
And unfortunately, there's loads of them in there. I'll tell you where it is great for trail riding, where I went last year, and it was probably one of the best weekends of enduro sort of stuff I've done, which was Isle of Man. There's an absolute ton over there. Some of the trails that they've got, fair gnarly as well. There was one bit that was really steep. It was just like a rock face. And I said to my mate, look, I'm going to clean that. And I started going up it. It was like rock I've never experienced before. It was like, it looked grippy, but it was like ice. It had absolutely no grip on it whatsoever. And as soon as you hit it, I mean, you just had literally no traction at all. And everybody really, really struggled on it. And there was a few bits like that in the Isle of Man, which is just like this rock that looks grippy, but is just like ice. Really difficult to ride. Needless to say, fell off.
Have you done any big foreign trips? You mentioned Spain.
Do you know what? I haven't, but it's very much on the radar.
Is that time that's halted you on that?
I got married up pretty young. I was married at 20.
Married up? Is that the right way to describe it?
Yeah. I got shackled. early doors, too early, really. It just never was a possibility, I suppose. And we had kids real early as well. So I was like 25 when I had my first kid. Having children at a young age, you know, it just sort of like limits you from doing anything like that. And
there's an advantage to that, though, isn't there?
Well, of course, I can go and do it all now. So last year, I ended up going through a divorce over the last sort of 18 months, which has been really, really, it's a difficult period. Well, like phenomenally difficult period. I'm sure like loads of people, well, half the population, half the marriages end up in divorce. It's absolutely shocking. But new lease of life, I'm back, and you know, all these things are sort of opening themselves up to doing that kind of thing now. So I'm thinking very much about doing stuff, having adventure, going off and, you know, seeing different parts of the world. It's a big place, isn't it? And there's lots of amazing experiences to be had.
Can I just say before we go down there, everybody I know that's been through divorce, and it's always a horrible year or two, they always come out of it smiling. Effectively, you get every other weekend is free to go out riding. You've always got a babysitter. I'm sure it'll get better if it hasn't already.
Yeah, it very much has. I mean, actually, the last year, while it was like incredibly difficult, I fought for it really hard and couldn't make it work. And it was really, really tough in a lot of ways. But actually, I made this like picture wall in my bedroom, and I put all of the things that I'd done over the last year and all the people that I'd met and so on and so forth. And you know what? I've had a really fantastic time. I've made a right load of friends. Most of them actually, funnily enough, are through motorbiking. And for me, that is probably, so if you'd have said like, what is the best bit about motorbiking? I think it is actually, the motorbike riding's class, whatever derivative of it you're doing. But I think the probably the best bit is actually meeting people and meeting like-minded people, and you making like real friendships out of it. You can do that with people all over the world if you travel, can't you? And it's just a massive thing. So I got to ride on a few press launches last year. One we did in Sardinia. God, that was great. That was on a 890 SMT KTM thing. It's like a mixture between an adventure bike and a supermoto.
Probably should say at this stage that you're getting invited to these launches because you've got a fairly massive YouTube channel as well, haven't you, under Knox Armour? You've got something like over 80,000 subscribers, about 400 videos. Obviously, you're doing a lot of these videos wearing your own kit to help promote it, but you do an awful lot of different things on your YouTube channel as well. It's not work though. It doesn't qualify as work. It's just dicking around on bikes. We know, we've done it.
How that came about really was I'd worked in the business for a long time, and I'd spent a long time selling our products as well to different dealerships, and I would drive all the way up and down the country. Doing it from Whitehaven, Cumbria is really difficult. Super difficult place to get to and from where anyone lives. It's just horrendous. So you'd be putting in like massive hours just driving up and down the country. And back before the internet, it was really the dealerships that controlled the local market, I suppose. You know, there wasn't internet shops or websites or things like that, or if they were there, nobody trusted them enough to buy, and you would just go to your local dealership and see what they had in stock. But getting into these places, getting your products into these places, astronomically difficult. You know, a lot of the deals are sort of like done on the back of like, I mean, I'm going back a few years, but you know, we'll chuck in a colour TV with that order, and you know, we can't put Knox in because we've got a big deal going on with George Lloyd from, you know, Lloyd Lifestyles, and he's taking us out to Gran Canaria and blah, blah, blah. And it's difficult to compete with all that stuff. It was just very, very, very difficult to get your brand out there, never mind in the UK, but all around the world in that sort of context that is very much controlled by dealers and distributors and powerful brands ultimately. And anyway, when the internet has become more and more popular and the likes of YouTube and stuff, I guess I just sort of saw a bit of an opportunity to actually, rather than just go to and try and convince individual dealers to take Knox products on, and we'd have a team of people doing that, we could actually connect with lots of end users, relate to them directly via producing videos and producing our own content and having our own story rather than having somebody else tell it for us, and have a great time doing it as well. So that was where the idea, you know, get serious about our own content came about. It was having our own audience, but also testing our products really as well, you know, on the latest motorcycles. You know, once we grew the channel to a decent level and were producing videos to a certain quality, there was opportunities to borrow bikes at different points, and we could borrow them from a manufacturer, do a nice video, do our sort of take on it, and people would watch it.
Did that strategy start to work straight away then, or did it take a while to build up?
It took a while to build up, yeah, definitely. And there's lots of trial and error, and I was doing all of the filming and the editing and the riding, the presenting myself, you know, so it was in the beginning not great. I don't think you could get away with it in the same way that you could now, because now everybody's doing it. It's much harder to sort of break into, isn't it? Because every man and their dog's having a go. Back then, probably, I wouldn't say 10 years ago, it was probably a little bit easier if you started then, which was probably when we started as well. You build up your experience, don't you?
Do you ever revisit your early content?
Yeah.
Do you ever delete any of your early content?
Yeah, some of it I'm really proud of, and then some of it I think, oh God, that was just terrible. Which I'm sure everybody thinks, don't they? You know, when they look back on them, so, oh, you hate your voice, and you know, but you look younger, and it's this weird conundrum, isn't it? Sort of love-hate relationship with it. I mean, it's probably gone off our YouTube channel, and that type of content, like the motorcycle review sort of stuff, has probably gone off the boil over the last year, more from a sort of personal position. But it's coming very much back on the agenda. We've got some really exciting motorcycle-based content coming up.
And there's some great content on there as well. Well worth a look. We'll kind of get onto your products in a bit as well, but also loads of information about the products as well, so it's really good stuff. Let's talk about Knox now and where you are, because you've got quite a range of stuff. It all seems to me to be based around the armoured shirts, armoured jackets that you make that are incredibly popular. We see a lot of them everywhere. We were out with 4 guys from Sweden yesterday, and they were all wearing Knox stuff, and we actually point out to them, it's made just over there. Quite impressed with that. I had my Knox gloves on. I've got my faithful Knox Orsas. If I'm not wearing them, these are in my bag, because the only reason I'm not wearing them is because of the weather. I'm also, what are these things called here? These bits here?
Oh yeah, the scaphoid protection system.
I find it really difficult to wear a pair of gloves now without having this in now. I fell off on a trail in Spain, and I think I'd not long had them a couple of years ago. It just works. You just slide on the ground, even though it wasn't tarmac. They do exactly what they're meant to do, right? But yeah, I'm a big fan of the gloves.
Has Clive already fessed up to his glove obsession?
Yeah, he has, yeah, on WhatsApp.
Mark Wells connected us with Aaron, and he's got exactly the same problem as I have. He's got probably at least as many gloves as I have, if not more.
Gloves are the most purchased motorcycle piece of equipment. You go in a motorcycle shop and you do just like, even if you're feeling a bit awkward or whatever and you don't quite know what to do, they're quite intimidating places, aren't they, motorbike shops? Or I certainly think they are. People don't always smile at you and stuff, and it's just I don't try a helmet on, but you just stick a glove on and sort of gives your hand something to do, doesn't it? And all of a sudden you're like, oh God, these are quite good, and then you end up with a pair. Most people have got like 10 pairs.
We'll get onto Noel's glove collection in a minute. Tell us about the current range that you have.
It is very much anchored at the moment on our protective armoured shirts. I guess we've gone through a few different stages. I mean, my dad invented the first ever back protector. Then actually from there we ended up making the first armour for motorcycle jackets and put them inside our own jacket. We actually won an award back in 1988 for the first ever jacket that had armour in it. Effectively what happened after then is that we got a bit of interest from people like, Frank Thomas of the day and, MQP in the Netherlands and things like that. And in order to kind of sell them these little things and about our ideas and so on and so forth, a lot of them actually just ripped it off like mercilessly. But what did happen is we ended up kind of morphing into that being our specialism in terms of supplying the protectors themselves. We would call it OEM, the actual foam inserts for motorcycle jackets. Very much the pressure from our customers at that point was, look, stop making motorcycle clothing. If you make motorcycle clothing and are selling us these inserts, ultimately you're competing with us and we won't buy that. So you just make these inserts for us, these protectors, and stop doing that, and we'll give you a good amount of business. So we did that for quite a lot of years and became like really famous for it, I suppose. Knox Armour, that's kind of like what we were really, really famous for. So we would supply loads of brands like Revit, Bearing in France. They were massive for us at one point. Triumph, Royal Enfield at one point. Big clothing brands from all over the world would take Knox Armour in. Progressively, that has kind of reduced our range of retail-ready products, like our armoured shirts, like our own gloves. That makes up the core of our business. We do still work with other brands and supply them like OEM equipment, but it's now quite a small part of our business. The vast majority, probably 97% of it, is coming from our own products that are retail ready. Big part of that umbrella is the armoured shirts. We've been making armoured shirts since the early 1990s, and the idea was just to have like a flexible, comfortable housing for our armour that people could wear, whether that was underneath a motorcycle jacket, whether that was under a rain jacket, whether that was for mountain biking or skiing or whatever. There wasn't any abrasion resistance built into it, and it wasn't designed to be a specific motorcycle jacket. And the fear was, if we made something too closely resembling a motorcycle jacket, we would be competing with our customers like the Frank Thomases and stuff, and they would take offence of that and stop trading with us. As that issue has become less and less, and these products have become more and more successful, and the reason why you'd wear one in the first place is because the idea of armour fitting closely to your body is just
makes it more effective, right?
It makes it more effective. It's not swimming around in a much bigger motorcycle jacket that's got multiple layers and just moves as soon as you crash. It's situated in the right place. But when the new safety standards came out a few years ago, EN 17092 for motorcycle clothing, we had an opportunity to reimagine what our armoured shirts had been. So previously they'd just been ultimately just like ensembles or a housing for our armour, whereas these new standards came in and we thought, well, I wonder actually if we could build these same armoured shirts but incorporate the correct amount of abrasion resistance and tear resistance that was required by these new standards. That would be a real game changer. Our design team kind of cracked on with it, and effectively that's what we did, and we brought out the Knox Urban Pro shirt, and that was the first product that we'd done, which was our armoured shirt that had all of the benefits of the armoured shirt: lightweight, breathable, unbelievably flexible, had armour that was fit in the correct areas, and that you could just chuck a hoodie over or whatever and ride in real comfort, but it had the abrasion resistance built into it.
And did that material already exist in some other application, or did you have to invent it?
We developed with it. I would say on that first product, that first version of the Urban Pro, it would have been taking existing fabrics that we found that possibly we already had supply of, but incorporating them differently than we had done before and making the garment more robust than we had done before. That was the case then, but now is a totally different ball game. I mean, we're only talking like 5 years ago, but now our products, almost all of them, are like specifically developed Knox fabrics that we take from start to through to finish.
What are the mechanics for testing a fabric like that?
The new standard includes ultimately a big concrete slab that's spun at a set speed. The concrete slab is chipped away at a certain specification that it says within the standard. The arms are spun on top of it, dropped onto the concrete thing, and then they come to a stop. The fabric that's attached to these arms is checked out, and if it's got holes in it, then obviously it's a fail, and if it hasn't, then it's a pass.
And how do you test padding?
Padding is done in a different way, so that's done with a drop test machine. We've got one of them in the factory. Essentially, you drop a 5 kilo weight from a height of 1 meter onto this sort of metal anvil that's got a sensor in it, and it reads transmitted force. So you pop the protector on top of the anvil that's got this sensor in it, drop the weight on top, it records how much transmitted force is put through to the anvil. If it gets below a certain threshold, then it either passes level 1 or level 2.
I never wear chest protection. I think, Clive, you always wear chest protection, don't you?
I tend to, yeah. Can I just say I only wear it because it makes my belly look smaller. So it's about an inch thick. I look wider on the whole, but it's like my chest is the same size as my belly then.
Should I wear chest protection?
I don't wear chest protection either. I'm sure I'd regret if I got harpooned by a big stick or something like that on one of my enduro rides.
Why don't you?
I haven't been harpooned by a stick yet,
That's how it works, isn't it? I didn't wear stiff boots until I broke my foot. Now I wear stiff boots.
Yeah, that's a stupid thing. You'd wear those trials boots effectively, or those soft boots, and it's like everybody else has got enduro boots. Oh, well, I never fall off until you fucking fall off. Fortunately, Aaron, we got it on camera and it's out there for everybody to watch and smile at now.
What did you do?
Oh, so humiliating. This is a great story. It's better when I tell
Did a
it.
Beckham and broke some metatarsals. I was showing off for a camera and I lifted the front end and it came right over. I was on somebody else's bike. I wasn't used to it, and the footrest fell on my ankle. And luckily, there was the boots I'd had a heel cup in them, and the heel cup did a heck of a lot to save me. But the rest of the boot didn't do a lot to save me. So I'm now wearing. Better not name the brand.
Wearing Siddies. We can say Siddie. Knox don't make boots.
Well, it's been a revelation. Can I just talk about it for a second? Because I always thought that motocross boots would be very uncomfortable. Turns out they're the most blooming comfortable thing you can wear because it really braces your foot. The analogy I would make, it's like going for a walk up a very rocky mountain in trainers. And first of all, you think, this is great, I can feel everything. Well, actually, after about 5 minutes, it's not great, is it? It feels awful in soft shoes and much easier on stiff boots. So it's great standing up on the pegs in motocross boots because you can stand all day without any sort of fatigue in your feet. And I've just fallen in love with them. They're wonderful things.
I guess the other thing with your range, Aaron, there's only you and one other small UK company does it, is the whole layering thing, right? So once you've got your AAA rated armoured layer and a base layer underneath that if it's cold, you can then pretty much wear anything you want on top.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's the beauty by having that core armoured layer that's not only got your protection in it, but it's got your abrasion resistance, it's got your tear resistance. That's all the protection is just built into this layer. And when it's hot, you just use it on its own. If you've ever used one of those products, you can feel the benefit the second that you set off. You can be 50 metres down the road and all of a sudden light bulb comes on. I get it. I understand what this does now, because you feel the amount of breathability, the ventilation that you get with it, and you think, oh man, this is just a revelation. And sometimes we all like to ride in hot weather, don't we? But when you are locked and loaded with your typical sort of leather stroke textile suit on, all of a sudden turns from this epic idea into flipping out. I just want to stop and get this kit off and jump in the nearest lake.
Well, do you find this concept a hard sell? Because as motorcyclists, I think we're stuck in our ways. We're traditionalists. We're creatures of habit. Do you find it a difficult concept to sell to people?
Not really, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge that it takes time to build momentum. Even if you have like a great idea, it takes some time to really get that into the marketplace and get people to understand it. And of course, that word of mouth recommendation is 100% is the best form of marketing that you can get. You can't do that without taking some time, because people have to try it and use it and enjoy it.
It's just like dual clutch transmission, Clive. People are just so slow to learn how great it is.
No, it's not. Wearing layers is still actually motorcycling, whereas dual clutch automatic transmission on a half a Honda Accord is not motorcycling.
Do you miss having a petrol tap, something else to fiddle with?
Yeah, the motorcycle market does sort of move slowly, and we are sort of, with the traditional textile jacket and so on, we're probably a bit behind the times with that kind of concept. You know, if you were to look at walking, they don't tell you anymore to wear a big, thick sort of jacket, do they? You know, it's all about different layers, because actually you're going to get hot here, and when it rains, you know, you stick this on and so on and so forth. You know, you kind of adapt to the climate with your different layers, and you don't get too sweaty and hot, because then of course as soon as it gets cold and your sweat's on you and you go freezing, and we haven't really adapted to that in motorcycling. We're sort of still used to just buying the 3 layers, zip in, zip out, everything. You know, you've got 15 different layers flying all around the room, trying to get it quite right for you. Whereas I think we're offering a different solution. We're totally committed to that solution as well. And it takes a bit of time to get that across to people, and it's still very much a work in progress to get that message out worldwide. But it is getting out there and it is sticking. The bit that is the most encouraging part is that when people, generally speaking, when they take it on and when they buy it for themselves, they go, that's fantastic and I'm really happy with it, and I probably won't go back to sort of more traditional stuff. That's probably the most encouraging sign, and that's how you build momentum, is making customers happy, having them happy with the product that you've sold them, and they'll come back for more ultimately.
I think trail and enduro riders definitely get the concept, because it makes up. I mean, we went out yesterday. I treated myself to a more traditional suit, and I thought it was going to be rain and cold yesterday, and it turned out to be really warm. Absolutely sweating my cobs off, but I couldn't be asked to stop and take off the waterproof layer that was underneath the big jacket. Normally, trail riding, totally layered up. It's really easy to take one layer off, stick it in your rucksack.
What I always think as well, certainly when I've done a lot more travelling, especially over the last year, I've thought, my God, we have some shocking weather here.
And such a short window for riding, don't we, as well, really?
When you go abroad and you see what weather people have. I mean, I was in Lyon in beginning of March, and it was cold, but it's a different cold to here. You know, it was like still, there's no wind, there's no rain. It's just sort of like bright, sunny, cold but rideable. That's only going to get better for them throughout the season, isn't it? You know, they're going to have a great spring, you know, have an awesome summer. And I thought, Joe, this is actually weather that would make you really want to ride a motorbike. And then you get back to Manchester Airport, and the weather's just like, fuck you.
We should all be making a massive effort to go away in April, go south in April, and go south again in sort of end of October, November, just to try and stretch out our summers, shouldn't we?
100%. So I guess the point of that, our products like really resonate well with people that are wanting to ride in warmer climates. Whatever your standpoint is on climate change and stuff, generally speaking, you know, the idea is that everywhere's getting a little bit warmer. So that's only going to become sort of more prevalent, people looking for stuff that works in warmer climates. I was in Saudi a few weeks ago, Saudi Arabia. Obviously that country's just opened up to the world. We've got a really fantastic partner over there, and I did the open day with them. You know, our products like perfectly resonate with riders over there, because they're like, God, never mind all this thick stuff, and they're selling that as well in this shop. And you can see people looking at it and going, how am I going to wear this? Because it's like 40, 45 degrees outside. You wouldn't want to. And they look at our stuff and go, well, okay, but it's mesh, it's got holes in it, the ventilation's incredible, but it's still got the same level of protection. Totally get that, I understand it, and I'd like to wear it.
But you do all the other stuff as well, don't you? It's not just the jackets, you do the what you can tell us, but from base layers through to waterproof layers, right?
Yeah, base layers, the whole system that is wrapped around this core armoured layer. So we did base layers, and the base layers are absolutely second to none. And we do waterproof layers, insulating layers that go over the top of these things. It's the whole seasonless collection. The idea is that you have one outfit for all conditions. That's our sort of tag. So rather than having like, a summer jacket, a winter jacket, a leather jacket, different versions of different things to adapt to different climates. Ultimately, you just have one outfit, which is your armoured shirt. You use that all year round because that's your armour and that's your abrasion resistant layer. When it gets into the winter, you would have an insulating layer with waterproofing on, and you just add that over the top, and then that kind of covers you for all eventualities, and it works on all bikes. It's not like, this is a sports jacket and this is an enduro jacket. Actually, you can use certainly what we do on all of our tests, whether we're doing YouTube or whatever. I mean, it's crazy because actually, whether I'm on a sports bike or a super bike or on an enduro bike, pretty much I'm in the same stuff, and it works for all different motorcycles.
And your gloves, it's a well-known fact I am a glove obsessive, and I have, I think, 4 or 5 pairs of Knox gloves. So not only just the Orso, that's the glove that I will wear if it's not raining, but I've also got 4 other pairs of your gloves as well, and they are my go-to gloves, which is why I was really keen to talk to you. Absolutely the best. So when did you start making the gloves?
I think we started making them in about 2009 with the Handroid glove. We had the patent for the scaphoid protection system, so that's these sliders on the palm. And obviously us being a protective equipment manufacturer, and we were specialising in the OEM stuff, these pads to go in different in people's motorcycle jackets. We're also a very innovative company, and we come up with this idea that motorcycle glove armour, and what do we do about that? And lots of people with motorcycle gloves were doing all sorts of stuff with the knuckles, these huge, massive, like carbon sort of knuckles and massive stuff on the top of the hand. And yet the palm of the glove was literally just leather or textile or whatever.
It's funny because as a kid, that's all I remember about riding push bikes was that I constantly had a little bit of grit right in the centre of my palm all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Because common sense says if you're going to fall over, and that's whether you fall over like walking or push bike or enduro bike, you just instinctively put or if you're out on the town and you stack it there, you're going to fall down on your hands, aren't you? And you put your hands out. And the problem is when it comes to motorcycle riding, there's speed involved as well. And what happens when you've got a material that's got a relatively grippy or higher coefficient of friction material combined with the road is that it grips. When your hand hits the road, it grips ultimately, but because your body's travelling, you end up ripping your hand underneath the bottom of you, hyperextending the wrist. The first bone to go in that scenario is the scaphoid. The amount of scaphoid injuries that there are and were in motorcycle riding is just unbelievable. It's a really flimsy bone, very difficult to heal. Loads of racers have done it, like Casey Stoner, Troy Bayliss. There's loads of people that have done their scaphoids, and it's very, very difficult to heal. So our idea was if we could figure out a nice way to put 2 sliders on the palm and allow the glove to slide as opposed to grip, that would solve the hyperextension of the wrist. In reality, it really does work.
Including mine now. What about those idiots?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at you, Noel. That go and buy their gloves from Screwfix. Now, your gloves tend to be fairly feature-heavy, don't they? One of the great things about your gloves is you've got the boa connector. If you crash in a Screwfix glove, the glove's just going to fall off your hand, isn't it? But with a boa connector, Noel, that tightens up on your wrist, those gloves aren't going to fall off.
Like, I have motorcycles for different things. I have gloves for different things.
You have gloves, the same pair of gloves for building walls, dry stone walls, for cutting logs, and for riding a motorbike. I've seen you.
I have Screwfix gloves. They're not Screwfix, but the popular ironmongers close by. And chainsaw gloves for trail riding.
Tell him, Aaron.
And then I have some nice leather. They're probably not as good as yours, Aaron, but they are made by, I think I've got some Risha gloves that I use on the road.
Tell him why he's an idiot, Aaron.
Well, I wouldn't do that. And that's the cool thing about motorcycle clothing, like, is that it's all about choice, isn't it? You know, we don't have to wear any of this stuff. You have to wear a motorcycle helmet, but the rest of it, it's user choice, isn't it? And you take that choice, you know, you pay your money and you take your choice. That's what you do. You know, all of our equipment is like CE approved and has to be now by law. It will do what it says it is. But I've been asked this like quite a lot. You know, do you think we should sort of make motorcycle clothing mandatory, that people have to wear CE approved stuff? I just think no, because it just takes that personal choice away. A massive part of motorcycling is freedom, isn't it? And deciding that, you know, I'm an adult here. I can go where I want. I can go anywhere I want. I could decide today, I want to drive to the south of France. And actually, if I had, or wherever in the world, you know, if I put my helmet on and I've got my motorbike, then I can actually do that. And I could wear whatever the hell ever I wanted, you know. But a lot of this stuff is trial and error, isn't it? Because actually, if you do fall off in these screw fix gloves and you do hurt yourself, then you'll probably, just like me, who's not wearing a chest protector and gets harpooned in the chest, you'll probably go, oh, do you know what? I probably should have wore a better pair of gloves.
So basically, Aaron, you're leaving it to me to tell Noel why he's an idiot. Noel, you work with your hands, don't you?
Yeah, but the truth of it is, and the truth, of course, is the bit that gets edited out, is that if I'm going on a road trip, I'll take road gloves for the road section, and I'll take my lovely light, thin leather gloves, or my Screwfix gloves, as you'd call them, and wear them on the trails on very hot days.
So if we change the word gloves to boots,
yeah,
same thing, you know, soft leather boots for when you're off-road, where you broke your ankle and now you wear great.
It's not practical, is it, to carry 2 pairs of boots? Whereas I always take 2 or 3 pairs of gloves away with me for different things.
Yeah, but I take proper motorcycling gloves away with me that aren't going to fall off.
But also, this is where Clive and I differ. 10 years ago, I needed some road bike gloves, so I brought some very protective Risha gloves, and they haven't worn out yet, so I'm still using them.
It's a fair point. None of my 8 pairs have worn out yet. Some of them have still got the label on, I think.
And I'm getting to the stage now where these gloves are going to see me out.
To be fair, if you look after the equipment that you've got, then it should last, shouldn't it? If you were to get a set like Clive's got, though, you know, that would do you both on-road and off-road. You know, that's the beauty.
There we go. So that's Knox. We're really happy to support a local family-owned Cumbrian business that are successful throughout the world. Love their stuff. Check out planet-knox.com if you need any new kit. It's great stuff. I know, because I use quite a bit of it. Also, getting quick, they've actually got an archive sale on right now. They seem to do them every year where they sell off the previous year's stuff, and you'll get some real bargains there. Right, the podcast's going to be a little bit sporadic over the next few weeks. We've got the Lightweight Adventurers Festival coming up this weekend, and summer holidays and various other things like that, but I'll try and keep popping up episode rewinds, and we've got loads of people lined up to record with now, so we'll be back on it as soon as we can. All right, listen, stay safe, have a great summer, we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.